Hi, Cancer. Welcome to your October 2019 Astro Update. It's Rena here. So this month, Cancer, there's an emphasis on the 4th and 5th houses for you. The 4th house that Libra rules in your particular chart is the house that you rule in the universal chart. It's the house of home and family and the mother. And all of those things are connected to Cancer and near and dear to your heart. Even if you're a male, you are very nurturing, typically, as a Cancer sun sign. Or even, these readings are also intended for people with Cancer rising. So you may have some of those same qualities. In that case, we would have to look at the sun to see how consistent it is. But in general, we could say that somebody with either the sun or rising in Cancer has that part of themselves that takes care of other people, is very sensitive, and you having that sun in the 4th house is almost like having the transit of the sun in Cancer for you. You feel at home there. It's wanting to be domestic, wanting to really kind of like absorb yourself in your house. Maybe you're actually doing something. You are dealing with a home. In some cases, I'm trying to see here if there's any evidence of perhaps a new home. Well, that might have already come about at the end of September. Now, I'm recording this right before the new moon in Libra. So there you go. If you're listening to this around the 26th or 27th of September, this has not occurred yet. The new moon in Libra is happening on the 28th of September. And so even a couple of days after that, so for the rest of September going into October, maybe even October 1st, is that kind of that window of the new moon energy being the strongest of new beginnings. And so this is your home sector. So yeah, maybe you are moving home, moving house, or buying a new house. And let me see here. So anyway, let's begin. Yeah, as a matter of fact, Venus is in this sector until the 8th of October. Okay, so if you're listening in late September, if you're listening in the first week of October, Venus is in that 4th house. At the very least, if you're not actually, receiving money for real estate, receiving money from your mother, you could be decorating your home. You could be getting it painted. You could be getting some kind of a new interior decoration of some sort. Maybe new furniture. You're maybe investing money to beautify your home in some way. That could be what is going on with Venus in that sector. But I want to do things in order. So on the 3rd of the month, Mercury goes into Scorpio. So Mercury has been in that 4th house. Yeah, that sounds about right. Because Mercury can be contracts. So signing that on the dotted line for a new home. Or, I don't like to say new home. Maybe you're selling a home, even though it's a new moon. It's like a new chapter in your life. And, endings and beginnings are hard to kind of categorize, right? Because an ending can be is a beginning, and a beginning is an ending. So something home-wise with contracts, contacting your mother for some reason. Now, this is another thing that I believe might be going on, is that there could be something with your childhood too. Cancer is never far from their childhood, even if they're 50 or 60 or 70 years old. They're still kind of there. In the Tarot, the Six of Cups is connected to Cancer. And what is that card, the theme of that card? The good old days. And that is something that Cancers really love. I'm surprised I don't have any planets in Cancer, because I find that I'm very sentimental myself. But probably a Cancer person could outdo me. So this is something where you may be thinking about something that happened when you were young, because Mercury is going to go into Scorpio on the 3rd, into the 5th house, which is also about childhood. So the 4th house is the mother and the family of origin and the past, and it's a water house, and it connects with I would say your memories of the past, of your home, of your homeland, if you're living in a different place now, all of that stuff. The 5th house is like the inner child, okay? It's the house of children. So here's an example. Let's say that you're a Cancer, I'll say a woman, but it could be a man by extension, wanting to be a father. But let's say you're a woman who wants to be a mother. And a lot of female Cancers may pretend from the time they're very young something to do with, being a mother, even more so than the average little girl. They may just really take to it, that playtime, because they really want that. And something in your mind, when you've had Mercury in the 4th house, may be really putting that in your head, like, they call it, baby on the brain. And then in the 5th house, when Mercury goes into the 5th house, it's really about the idea of children from a less subjective point of view, but just kind of like more, what will it entail? But also, what would it be like? So looking at it just from a more general standpoint, but also, what do you have to offer because of your inner child? So, in other words, some people are the walking wounded, and they may not harbor animosity towards children, but they still may not be completely whole from their childhood, and they are ambivalent about having children. And for some of you, this may have even led to some sort of rift with a significant other, because the 7th house has been extremely intense for you. And on the same day that Mercury goes into that 5th house, we have Pluto direct at 20 degrees of Capricorn in your 7th house of marriage and the equivalent relationship. I know personally somebody, I've said this I probably have said this to Cancer and Capricorn, but especially Cancer. I know, somebody of this sign, married many years. I just still can't believe it that these two people are separated, because Cancer is the one sign you think is going to stay married forever, even if there are a few problems here and there. But the thing is that in addition to having all these heavies, like Pluto, Saturn, and the South Node in the 7th house, you have the North Node in your sign. And that means that it's time to honor yourself, Cancer. You have to do what you have to do, and sometimes you may think it's out of character, but the North Node is in your 1st house. So for once in your life, and really it's not once in your life, because this happens like, you have the North Node in your sign, how many times? It takes, I would say, I think they said something like 12 years, but it's got to be more than that, because I think it's like a year and a half in each sign. So probably every 18 years. I'll have to double check that. But you do have it more than once in your lifetime. But at these intervals, you might feel like something has to give and you have to stop taking care of others and take care of yourself. And that may simply mean honoring your wishes and stop putting other people ahead of you. And the thing that's going on though about that seventh house is that Saturn is there. Now Saturn is direct, so things might be a little bit more organized. These planets that have been retrograde, Pluto retrograde, might have been brutal in the seventh house. So again, this is October 3rd. Pluto, you know what I think of Pluto retrograde in the seventh house? If you've ever seen the movie Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which actually came out in 1966, I think. It was a play, and then the movie starred Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, and I believe they were married at that time, but it's a brutal play. Edward Albee, the playwright, and the dialogue is just amazing because it's like, it's so intense and it's so, cringy. But it's a great movie version of a play. And that's what I can say about Pluto retrograde in the seventh house, of just the shadows coming out. In this relationship. But actually, a lot of times what happens when there's shadows that come to the surface, there can be a lot of projection that is occurring before that, where the people, and this isn't just necessarily you, although I would say it's you because this is your particular chart, or if you will, although it is a general kind of a reading, but in any case, you might feel like these things, you were disconnected from them, things that perhaps you resented, maybe depending on your gender and who you're involved with, that you associated with that gender parent, and then you kind of take it out on everybody that is of that same gender in terms of your relationships. So a woman who is attracted to men who had a bad relationship with their father growing up may not be connected to the fact that she treats men rather disdainfully, and she pushes away relationships even with men who are decent and want to get to know her better, because she has so much hostility towards her father. And the same thing with a man and his mother. And so these kinds of things are definitely, deeply psychological. And now that Pluto's direct, it has that transformative effect, but it won't be as brutally revealing in the sense of your own mask being ripped off. So, and even with the South Node in that seventh house, there can be things going on that connect with a past life issues, where you have perhaps tended to be codependent. And this is kind of baked into the sign of Cancer to begin with, because again, you're the caretaker, the mother, regardless of what gender, and you want to nurture others. And the problem is that some people don't want it, and that might make you pursue them more, and some people are all too willing to let you take care of them when they should be doing things for themselves. So it's like one of those deals. And you have to, you really have to honor yourself at this time with the North Node in your first house. Okay, on the 4th, Mars goes into Libra, and that, again, is the 4th house. that can bring a lot of activity. So if you are painting your house, you might also be building an addition or something that is vigorous that you have to, use construction workers or something, or machines is Mars. Perhaps there is some kind of conflict that is connected to the mother, because you've recently had Mercury go into the 5th house. So Mercury has been in that 4th house. So dealing recently with the mother, and then perhaps having conflict of some sort, or if there's a bidding war for a house, so there's like competition between you and others to buy a house, who knows, something along those lines. And so Mars is kind of uncomfortable in the sign of Libra, because Libra is like make love, not war. And Mars is the god of war. And in the 4th house, this is where you have your 4th house. It's Libra ruled. And so you want that peace in your home. And Mars could be something that is creating some kind of conflict. And this could be, for various reasons why it's happening. But anyway, on the 8th, Venus goes into Scorpio. Venus has been in the 4th house, now it's in the 5th house. And this is great for love. And this is where the love influences come in. Mercury is already there, so you might be talking to somebody. Again, you've had this hard energy in the 7th house. So it's possible that for some people, some Cancer people who have been having marital troubles, that there is somebody else, somebody that you've met. And that can be coming in between you and a spouse. And perhaps before it was an infatuation, but now it's the real deal with Venus in the 5th house, starting on the 8th. Venus in the 5th house can also be making money through artistic pursuits or the business that you own. On the 13th, we have a full moon at 20 degrees of Aries. Another cardinal placement here, and that is your 10th house of career. So full moon can be a time of recognition, of like reaching the apex in something. Maybe you finished a project and it has elevated you to receiving some kind of recognition. This is public, sometimes acclaim for those who that would be appropriate or apropos. Depending on the period of life you're in, you might be retiring or shifting out, phasing out one career. Maybe you're planning to go into something else. But it could be recognition or promotion for you. On the 23rd, the sun goes into Scorpio, that 5th house, romance. Sun is romantic. Sun is very warm, and therefore, the 5th house is also the house of pleasure, by the way. I should have said that. So you have Venus there, and you might be uncharacteristically spending money on concerts and plays and other amusements. Cancer, for some reason, maybe if you're in the early throes of some kind of love affair, you might just be going out a lot. Maybe you're going out to dinner, or you're going to plays with a new love interest, and you're not watching the pocketbook as much. You're wanting to enjoy yourself, Fifth house, pleasure, enjoyment, love, and even sex, but not serious sex, kind of relationship sex. I was going to say birthday sex. Okay, what else? On the 27th or 28th, depending on where you live, there's going to be a new moon in this fifth house at 4 degrees of Scorpio. And again, I didn't say this before because I thought it goes without saying that Scorpio is another water sign. So it forms a trine with Cancer, and it's very nice. I think that you probably always enjoy the late October to late November period when the sun is in this nice angle to you, where the energy flows very easily and things can come to you with a lot less work. And so this is new beginnings in the love sector, but also the creative sector if you're an artistic type of person, or a new business. Now, speaking of new businesses, if you plan to launch, just be aware that on Halloween, on the 31st, we do have a Mercury retrograde in this sector at 27 Scorpio, and that can be that's something. If you have launched a business or you're planning to do so, you may find out that you have a typo on your flyer or something like that, or print material, whatever. Again, Mercury can be also contracts and paperwork. And so you may have to redo something. It's, these things are just kind of aggravations. It doesn't have to be a big deal. But you may have to postpone your launch. Or if you have done it earlier in the month, then you might just have to correct something. This can be hearing back from an old lover. Mercury in the fifth house. Retrograde, I mean. And if this is a relationship, again, maybe this is a spouse who you are estranged from, and maybe they are coming at you, love bombing you. But if you have experience with this person where you know that they are, for instance, a potential narcissist, where they really don't seem to care about you as an individual and it's all about what they can get, then you have to look at this realistically. It may be a rush. It may be kind of flattering to think that they really miss you and they can't live without you. But you have to think about the relationship itself and why you broke up, and not to kind of like idealize it, because there could be something that really is impossible for it to work out. And you just have that yo-yo effect where you're just going back and forth. And I'm not saying that that's going to be true 100% of the time. People do reunite and they stay together. It can happen. But you need to have both people committed to the relationship in an equal way. You can't have one person who's going to make all the concessions. And if that one person is supposed to be you, then you better think very carefully about it. Okay, that's what I have for you, Cancer. I hope that you resonated with this. If you would like a personal reading, please check my website. I have a special right now for my natal chart interpretations. You can see the information below. The deadline so far, I don't know if I will extend it, is October 7th for the sale on the natal charts. I hope you have a great month. Take care. Bye.